Okay. Well, good morning and welcome to the City of Milwaukee's annual Mobile Summit. I'm Carly Hagerty. I'm the Director of Consumer Environmental Health here at the Milwaukee Health Department. We're basically the division that oversees the initial setup and continued operations of your mobile food carts, trucks, and service bases. We have several city departments joining us today, including our licensing division, the Milwaukee Police Department, and the Department of Public Works. Together, we've assembled what we hope is content to inform you on everything from plan review and pre-licensing of your unit to the continued safe operation of your business once licensed. We have about an hour for the presentation, so I'm just asking that if you have questions, to please put them in the chat if you have access to them, and we'll do our best to address those at the end as time permits. We'll not be stopping during the presentation for questions. If we run out of time at the end, just please know that we will respond to those questions and send them out with our responses, as well as the meeting recording after this. So you will have access to those, and any answers that aren't already on our website, we'll make sure to put on our website as well. Let's see here. If you have specific questions to your unit, those are going to be best addressed by emailing or calling the contact information that's in the top left of your screen there. So if you see the clango@milwaukee.gov, as well as the telephone number, that is direct contact information for one of our consumer environmental health coordinators who oversees mobile units. So they'll be best equipped to get back to you. We have several hundred mobile food establishments in the city alone, and we know the value that you guys bring to our community. Thank you again for attending this presentation, and I look forward to a safe and bountiful year for you and your business. I'll pass this on now to Maria Salgado. She's one of our consumer environmental health supervisors, to just go over a couple housekeeping pieces, and then we'll continue on with the presentation.
Good morning. Thank you for being here today. So like Carly said, I'm Maria Salgado. I'm one of the consumer environmental supervisors. A couple of things: when you guys just log in, I think you had immediate access to some of the handouts that we have for you. That the first one is the mobile food service and mobile retail food establishment. This one has a lot of information for you guys, to like in general, like, you know, about the structural on your cars, parking, your service base. We also have a food safety guideline that explains everything. It has all the tips for when you get your inspectors doing your inspections. It has like cold holding temperatures, cooking temperatures, all the safety, food safety information that you need to have in there. We also have the log that for those that have your bases, you should be having in your base. That's a document, very important document that we are looking when we go to your bases to do your renewals and your inspections. And the last one is just like a mobile checklist that it will help you to go over to make sure that you have everything you need to operate your mobile unit. So the order of the day is going to be, we are going to have Courtney Language, which is one of the coordinators for our program, and Jennifer Sanin doing, she's one of our inspectors. They're going to be doing our presentation for mobiles. And then we're going to have Fabiola Martin from licensing, and from parking, we're going to have Richard Dolfo. And then we're going to have from the police department, we're going to have Officer Xavier Benitez. So I'll pass it to Courtney.
Good morning, everyone. Okay. So I will be kicking us off. Informational session. We're going to try to give you some information here for new operators starting a mobile business, and then also existing. You might learn a few things as well. We're going to give you some information on skills to ensure a safe and healthy environment for your customers and your employees. We will talk about structural requirements for mobile food units, and the code compliance that you have to make that unit up to, and then proper licensing and inspections. So opening a new unit, what you'll want to do is submit some operational plans. You'll need to get a mobile service base more than likely, and you'll have to submit a shared kitchen agreement with your licensing application. You may want to submit a menu, and you'll have to submit an itinerary with your application as well. And that itinerary is just going to show or list the locations for which you plan to operate. Now, we realize that mobile units are mobile, so the beauty of it is that you can move around. You should be updating that with your inspector or with your renewal application every year so that if the health department has to locate you for any reason, we know where to find you. And that CEH coordinator at milwaukee.gov is a good email to send questions, licensing questions. That's our general inbox, and we can filter that appropriately. This would be a sample floor plan of your unit. So in there, you can see that there's a list of the sinks, the equipment, and it shows just a general layout of what your unit may look like. And that helps us, when we see your menu, we can assess if it is set up appropriately so that you're set up for success when you're out operating. Truck identification. You may have a truck with a unit tag on it already, or you may have seen these out already operating. That blue and green tag is not a license. That is simply a unit ID number that helps us identify which unit is which. And that is specific for an operator for a business in our electronic inspection system. So if you, excuse me, if you rewrap your truck and that gets covered, you'll want to give us a call right away because we're going to issue you a new number. As far as unit identification on the outside of your truck or unit, you should have on at least two sides the name of your business and a valid phone number. And those letters and numbers should be at least 3 inches large. Freshwater tanks. Most units will require clean water tanks of some sort. And with that, that material has to be durable. It must be safe. It has to be non-absorbent, corrosion resistant, and smooth and easily cleanable. So I think probably the most common tank, it's like a white clear poly tank. Those are the ones that we see most often. There are also stainless steel tanks, and there also are some challenges with stainless steel tanks, but we'll get to that in a few slides. But it is an appropriate material. Push carts, so those are your hot dog style carts. They of course don't necessarily have to have hot dogs. You can serve anything from them, but that's the style we're talking about where I could physically push it down the street if I had to. If you're buying or designing one of these, the water tank requirement for a push cart is going to be 5 gallons clean. 5 gallons clean for anything that I can push down the street. If you have a larger unit like this one, this cargo trailer style, or a large truck that you would drive in separately, 10 gallons clean is going to be required, and that's for hand washing, and that is if you have very limited food prep. If you're doing reheating or serving beverages, 10 gallons may be appropriate for you. The bigger the unit, the bigger the tanks for the most part. If you plan to do any warewashing or washing of your dirty dishes and you have significant food prep on board the unit, you're going to need at least 40 gallons of clean water. And that is required to support the hand washing that you'll have to do along with any dirty dishes or warewashing. 40 gallons is that special number for the clean tank. So one of the other code requirements with the clean water tank is that we have to be able to see the water level. Now, to the right there, you see it's something called a sight gauge, and that has numbering on it, and it is installed in the clean water tank. What that does is it uses pressure, I believe, to let you know how much is left in that clean water tank. The other thing, or the other tank you could use, is that poly clear tank, which is the one on the left. It's like a clear white tank down there. You can actually see that water line at the bottom. So that would be appropriate. It's an appropriate material, and that meets the code because we're able to see the amount of water left in the tank. And the reason for that is that per the code, when there is 1 gallon of clean water left in your tank, you are required to close operation and return to your base to refill with more water. Because once you get down to 1 gallon, that's typically not a lot to support even a few hand washings and what you need to stay safe while you're operating. Some operators have this set up here. So what you're looking at here is you're looking at the bottom of this picture. These are the hood filters over the cooking equipment. And what it is it's a poly white clear tank that's been encased in the stainless steel. And what the operator did is they simply cut a window in that stainless steel, and now you can see through to the water tank and you can tell how much water is left. This is acceptable provided that that opening doesn't start to collect pests or anything undesirable. But this is allowed, especially if you have an older unit. You may find that your water tanks are encased in steel. Water inlets must be threaded, and they have to have a protective cover of some sort. So these are just 2 simple examples of how it's covered, and that is so that we can protect that water supply. This is for the clean water. This could be on the outside of your unit, or it more than likely is. You may also have a little housing compartment where your inlet is, and that is okay as well. But we really want to just keep that clean water supply uncontaminated. Freshwater hoses must be kept in a clean, covered, and marked container. And this hose can only be used to fill your unit with clean water. It cannot be used for dumping of wastewater. You can't use it to water your garden or to drink from it. You want it to be simply and only used to fill your unit with clean water. What must be printed on the hose is NSF 51 or 61, or it could be a clear food grade hose. But this freshwater hose that's labeled NSF 51 or 61 is appropriate. They sometimes are marketed as drinking water hoses, but you'll want to be careful because I have come across some drinking water hoses that are not actually NSF certified. So just make sure that it's printed on the inside lip of that hose. And you can kind of see it in that left-hand picture. There's like some black print on the hose, and that says NSF 51 or 61. And it also is right here. If you would choose a food grade hose, that one likely is going to be a little bit more expensive, but it also is going to be extremely durable in that that's probably likely the only hose you'll ever have to buy for the most part. And then we get to wastewater tanks. So where does that dirty water go? It definitely doesn't drip right onto the street and into a sewer. It's going to collect in a wastewater tank. And your wastewater tank has to be 15% larger than whatever your supply tank is. So as we talked about, clean water tanks can be different sizes. So whatever your clean tank is plus 15% is what you want your waste tank to be. And there's some sample math there for you. The wastewater tank also has to be made of a 14 gauge metal, and it has to be durable. It has to be fit so that it can drain by gravity. And sometimes they can be underneath the truck, which is fine. And sometimes they're somewhere else. Do not dump your wastewater into the street or down the sewer. That is not allowed. You may use a separate hose, so that could be any style hose, like a garden hose or you name it. But you want to keep that again separate and don't confuse it with your clean water hose. That tank that is pictured there is also a nifty gadget. It's typically used for RVs for draining waste tanks, but what you can do is tuck that underneath, connect it to your waste tank. It drains right in there, and you can roll it to an appropriate sink in your service base to dump. So sometimes that's just a little bit easier for operators, and that's okay with us. So an ideal sink setup is going to have a separate hand wash, as you can see on the right. And if your operation chooses to allow warewashing on the unit, or you feel you would like access to that, this is a 3-compartment sink, and you can see that these are separate. Now, this picture, while it is a nice picture, it's hard to see that there is a splash guard between that 3-compartment sink and the hand wash sink. So this is ideal because that's separate, and there's a splash guard to prevent any kind of contamination, depending on the direction for which you would do your dishes. A hand wash sink must be accessible at all times, and it has to be stocked. So this is the same rule that applies to our brick and mortar restaurants. You have to have soap, paper towel, and a sign at all times at your hand wash sink. And you cannot use that sink basin of the hand wash sink for any kind of storage. So no sanitizer buckets with rags stored in there, no utensils. It's got to be open so that you can hand wash. The water must also supply a steady stream of hot water, so there can't be any breaks in the stream for it to be approved. It can be a small stream, but there can't be any breaks. It has to be continuous. Warewashing sinks, again, we want a minimum of 3 compartments. Sometimes there are 4-compartment sinks out there, but minimum of 3 for the wash, rinse, and sanitize. And at this point in time, for new operators, the pre-wash in a 4-compartment sink is no longer allowed for hand washing. And if there are any questions on that separately for a specific unit, we can talk about that in an email or a phone call. You might be wondering and asking yourself, well, I looked at a truck and it's got 4 compartments, now what? Well, so this is one of those older units that I was talking about, and you can see the right compartment there says pre-wash. Well, at one point in time, the food code did allow for a pre-wash compartment to be used as a hand wash. That is not the case anymore as code changes. So what would happen in this case is that technically all 4 of these compartments would have to become hand wash because they're not separate. So there would be no warewashing allowed on this unit. You would have to carry clean utensils so that you can change them every 4 hours. And all of your warewashing would have to be done at the surface base. They all technically should remain clean, or I would say at least 2 of them should remain clean and accessible for hand washing. There are some other options that we've talked about as far as putting using for storage for maybe your bucket rig and cutting board and things like that. But that's a pretty unit specific situation depending on what you're doing, and we're happy to discuss some options for you. Vehicle surfaces. So the food code sets standards for floors and walls and finishes and lighting. So lighting has to be at least 50-foot candles. And light bulbs should be shielded, they have to be coated, or they have to be shatterproof, especially if they're over any food prep area, which based on most units and their size, that's everywhere. There cannot be any exposed wood, so no 2x4s holding up your countertop or anything like that. No exposed wood, because that wood is going to absorb grease, it's going to absorb moisture, and then other things come with that. So all the surfaces shall be smooth, cleanable, durable. Things like diamond plate, stainless steel, commercial grade linoleum are appropriate for floors. FRP is appropriate as well. So think of those surfaces. Water resistant is also a good idea, again, given because of the small space inside. Splashes are going to go far. There is a City of Milwaukee ordinance referenced here that says you must have a fire extinguisher on board if you have fuels such as gas, electric, fire for cooking. So the one on the right is the ABC. That's your typical standard fire extinguisher, and that is appropriate for most fuels except if you have any grease depth. So grease depth basically is a fryer or a wok that has any sort of a depth of frying grease that you're cooking with. And in that case, you would need a K-rated extinguisher, which is typically that silver one. They may be white as well, but definitely silver. And you're going to want to have that on your unit at your time of inspection, because that is something that is required. Certified Food Protection Manager requirements. One of these is required for you if you have a mobile unit, and you need at least one. So with that, let's say you own a restaurant and now you're going to add a truck. You still just need the one certified food manager to cover both the restaurant and the unit, and that should suffice. Now, that person, that certified food manager, is trained in food safety, and they are responsible for training all employees working on the truck. So with that, if there begin to be issues where we're noticing food safety issues and just lack of managerial control, we may order in another CFM, or we may order in some training or something, but you have to have one at a minimum. And the state has approved about 8, I think, different organizations that all offer something a little bit different as far as a review class, tests. You can take them online, in person. Whatever your learning style is and whatever you prefer based on your experience, those are all available to you. And the website there in green is where you can find a link to more information. So if you are a new operator of a food truck, you will have 90 days to obtain this certification from the day you get your license. So we give you 90 days as just kind of a window there, as things can sometimes take time. And especially with COVID, we are noticing that there are still some after effects with testing dates and in-person and options. So while yes, you do have 90 days, I recommend not waiting, because the 90 days is going to go by pretty quick. If you don't have your CFM at the 90 days, we will be in contact, and unfortunately your license will be suspended until you get one. So we'll have to close the truck or the unit until you have that CFM. You have to carry a copy of it with you on the unit. There should be a copy at the base as well. And in the past, there has been a requirement where if you had 4 trucks, you needed 4 CFMs. A recent interpretation from the state says that you simply need one, provided you are the owner of all of the businesses. So if there are 4 trucks under the same licensee, you still just need one CFM at this point in time. And here are some examples of those certificates. So this is what they look like. Keyword being, which I don't know if any of these have that, but the keyword is that it's manager. You don't want food handler, you want manager. So that is the one that's going to be required for you to obtain as a food manager. And now we're going to move over to mobile service bases, and I'd like to introduce Jen.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Jennifer Zanin. I'm going to be starting with talking with mobile service bases. Mobile service base is an enclosed building of sufficient size to accommodate for servicing, cleaning, inspection, and maintenance of your mobile unit. You are required to have one, and it must be licensed, which is a separate license called a mobile service base license. This is in addition to your mobile unit license. Operations such as packaged ice cream may not need a service base, but it will still be likely to need an approved water source or place to dump water. Mobile service base requirements, it must have an adequate water supply, a mop sink for your wastewater and disposal for your wastewater, the ability to accommodate time and space for the number of mobiles that they serve, and you would want to check with the Milwaukee Health Department if the base is appropriate for your mobile unit before you sign any agreements. It must have a hand washing sink, food preparation facilities, a sink with a threaded tap so you can fill your truck with portable water, an area for dry storage for food and supplies, an area where you can cold hold your food items, and a location where you can do utensil washing, as in like a 3-compartment sink. Mobile service bases. A tip is you need to visit your mobile base every 24 hours, so it should be conveniently located to where you're going to be serving your customers. You are required to have one, and you must use it. Your service base must keep a record or a log to sign in, and that is one of the sheets that were provided to you, one of the handouts. You can use that as an example. You must sign in the log every time you go to the base. If your service space is closed due to like an imminent health hazard, you will have to close also yourself. And if you lose access to your mobile service base, you must discontinue operating your vehicle until you acquire a new mobile service base. A copy of your itinerary must be posted at the base. Here is an example of that log that should be posted at your base. Basically, you want to put your name on it, the time, the date, the time you get there, and the time you leave. So you want to record your time there every single time that you are there, every day. And this is also your route itinerary, and this is where you intend to go during your day to serve your customers. The purpose is to help us find you out in the field if necessary. If you must update your itinerary if your route changes, and your itinerary must be posted at your mobile service base. Equipment on your truck must be ANSI or NSF certified unless approved by the health department. So some examples of what must be ANSI or NSF certified are your hoses, your sinks, coolers or refrigerators, spits, steam tables, and your beverage dispensers. So some pre-approved non-ANSI or NSF items are blenders, panini grills, coffee machines, microwave, slow cookers, waffle irons, rice cookers. And if you have another item, you just want to check with the health department before utilizing it on your vehicle. Coolers. So camping style coolers cannot be used for food. The camping style coolers can only be used for canned or bottled beverages, and they must be stored with the tops exposed, not submerged under the ice or into the water. Blue ice cannot be used with food items, and the coolers must be stored on the unit, not on the ground. Here is an example of an appropriate way to store your beverages with the tops exposed and not submerged in the water. Here is an example of an unapproved method to store your beverages and or foods. Here is also an example of an unapproved way to store your ice in these home style coolers. This is one example of an approved ice bin. It must be provided with a connection for draining, and it's NSF listed. Here's another example of an approved ice bin. These are unapproved beverage dispensers, kind of like these sports coolers that you use at sports games. Here is an approved beverage dispenser with a spigot, and it's also NSF listed. Grills. No bungee cords or chains can connect your grill to your vehicle. And a reminder, hot dog carts cannot have any raw meat. Mobile means mobile, which means movable. All equipment, except for your garbage can, must be on the unit. There are no canopy tents allowed. Tables, chairs, tents cannot be provided for customers. Mobile units are not allowed to use electrical cords or electrical connections. Do not block the sidewalk with your equipment or your supplies. Here are some examples not to have outside your mobile unit. To be like a table for your customers, chairs for your customers to sit at, and a tent to protect them from sun or rain. There are street restrictions in the city of Milwaukee. Use provided maps to ensure that you are in compliance. Know where you can and cannot sell, and also be considerate of your neighbors and the neighboring businesses. Provide a garbage can for your customers, and a reminder to clean up your area prior to leaving. Do not dump your wastewater in the street. And also the basic parking and traffic laws also apply to your mobile units. Here are some parking restrictions. Follow all parking signs, time limits, and basic traffic laws. No sales within 300 feet of a school entrance, open for students. And also no sales within 500 feet of most major performance venues 2 hours prior and after. And there's a list. You may not block any entrances to other businesses or residents. And there's also a 2-hour parking limit in residential areas within 6 hours between stops. And the following are some streets that prohibit parking in some spots. So you'll want to double check with that. So some things to consider before you hit the road. Do you have your current valid mobile food license? Do you have your certified food manager certificate on your vehicle? Do you have a copy of your mobile service-based license? Make sure you have adequate water, and you must have hot water. Check your refrigerators, freezers, and hot holding units that they're holding the correct temperatures. Check your supply of your soap and towels for hand washing. Have a sanitizer solution for your wiping cloths, and also have test strips to test the concentration of that water. Have a set of extra serving and cooking utensils. If you do not have warewashing facilities on your unit, and also an adequate supply of disposable gloves. Licensing and inspections. The city location of your service base and mobile unit should be issued in the same town. DACAP, which is also the state, no longer issues any mobile licenses. And be sure to inform us if you're going to be transferring if you were formerly licensed with the state, about transferring to the city. Applying for a license with the city clerk in Milwaukee, and you'll want to schedule a pre-inspection of your vehicle with the coordinator to assess the unit for any code issues. So some things to think about to prepare your mobile for either a renewal or your pre-inspection, which is your initial inspection. Have all equipment turned on and functioning. Have soap and paper towels on your vehicle. Have hot water running. Have sanitizer and test strips available. All your refrigerator units on your mobile must have thermometers, working thermometers. Pushable carts must have umbrellas. Windows do require screening. Unit is clean and in good repair with no leaks. Having a good stem thermometer, a working thermometer for checking food temperatures. Ensuring that you have your fire extinguishers on board. Provide a service base log and with your base use. Have your certified food manager certificate on your vehicle. All lights in the unit must be shatterproof or shielded, and all your chemicals on the unit must be stored properly. Okay, once you have your license in hand, you can start operating. And here's an example of a license that will be both for your unit and for your mobile service base. And once you receive that license, you'll receive a routine inspection within 6 months of licensing. And at this point, this is when the Milwaukee Health Department will give you a graded inspection. Your mobile renewal will be done every year at the license anniversary. And the city clerk sends renewal papers 3 months prior to expiration. You must contact your district inspector once your renewal paperwork has been sent out by the city clerk. The Milwaukee Health Department may also visit your unit for license and water checks and complaints anytime that you are operating. Off-hours inspections. Anytime that you are out selling, you are subject to inspection. Inspections can occur anytime, 24/7. Police officers are also able to check your units as well. Sanitation grades. All mobile carts inspected will receive a sanitation grade. Mobile placards are to be displayed visible to the consumer, just as in restaurants. For further information about our grading system, you can see the website listed below. And here is our contact information for the city clerk's office for licensing. Food inspection, you want to contact for your pre-inspection the CEH coordinator. You can find more information for certified food manager at the website listed below, and here is a link to our grading system. Thank you for joining us today.
Okay, so that was great information. So now we are going to pass it to Fabiola Martin from the licensing department.
Morning. For the licenses for the base and for the food truck, you will need the applications, which can be found on our website. The website is www.milwaukee.gov/license. You will need a business license application, a food dealer shared kitchen, and a floor plan for the base. And then for the food peddler, you would need a business license application and a food peddler supplemental license. Those can be found online, or you can stop by the office to pick up the applications and we can answer any questions if it is that you have any. The process for the application is you fill out the paperwork, we review it, submit it. The food dealer license goes to the health department, the police department, the Department of Neighborhood Services, and the alderman's office. All of those departments need to sign off on the application before any license can be issued. And then for the food peddler license, it just goes to the Milwaukee Police Department and health for inspection. Fingerprints are required for food peddler licenses, but fingerprints are not required for a food dealer license. But if you're applying for both, then fingerprints are required. The process from when the application is submitted to when it is issued is usually around 4 to 6 weeks, just due to the involvement of the other departments. And I think that's it from us, though. Our office is located in City Hall, room 105. We are open Monday through Friday from 8:15 until 4:30.
Fabiola, I'm sorry, I just saw the text here. Do you still want to share your screen?
If I can, sure.
Paul, is there a way that we can have Fabiola? Oh, yeah, if you go, I think Paul needs to make you a presenter. I think your screen is showing right now.
This one, the city website.
I see a screen with some flowers. Is that your?
You'll have to slide that others. You'll have to put your presentation on the
On
other
the
side.
other monitor. You had to
Oh,
monitor?
okay. Hold on, it's this one.
Yep, there you go.
All right. Thank you. Okay, so on the city website, this is the website, www.milwaukee.gov/license. You can go to licenses and then licenses and permits. That will take you to this page. And then the applications you need can be found under the business license section. And then keep scrolling until you get to the F. For most food peddlers, you will need the food dealer license for shared kitchen users. There's 2 bullet points. You would need both parts for the application, and this is just for the kitchen. The application for the food dealer is under this section titled Food Peddler. And again, there's 2 bullet points. So the business license application is a misleading title. It is not a separate license. It's just the form that we use to gather all the information regarding the business and then regarding the people associated to that business. So it's just that one form. Then, let's repeat. The food peddler application, which is the second link, has the information for your food truck, and then questions as to where it is, what you're going to obtain, the itinerary. And this food peddler itinerary is separate from the itinerary that the health department listed, but this is where you would list where you plan on operating or where this specific food truck will be during what days and the times you plan on operating. So these are the forms you need for the food peddler license. For the food dealer license, it would be the same, the business application, it's the same form, but then the supplemental would be for the kitchen. And this is what it looks like. There is a section on here that needs to be filled out by the current licensee at that location. If there's questions regarding that, you can ask us in our office and we'll be able to give you that information. You should list what hours you will be in the kitchen, so the earliest you plan on going there for prep, and then at the end, at what time you plan on going there to drop things off from the food truck, clean up your truck, etc. There's also a checklist and a sample floor plan of there's a checklist for the floor plan. This floor plan is specific to the kitchen, not the truck. And this is what a shared kitchen floor plan needs to look like. It should have just the generic information for the kitchen, since that is mainly what will be used, the space at that location. But one thing that a lot of people miss, or they come in with the paperwork and it's not complete, it's mainly because of the floor plan. All of these items must be included on the floor plan. It should, again, look something like this, and then the rest of the paperwork. But you do need both of them if you're applying for both the food dealer and the peddler license. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Fabiola. And now we're going to move to parking to Richard.
Hello, good morning. I'm Rich Dahlhoff. I'm the parking enforcement manager for the City of Milwaukee. And a lot about parking for a food truck is very simple. Basically, you need to follow the signs and pay the meters. If you're parking at a 2-hour meter, you need to pay that meter for 2 hours and park no longer than 2 hours. After that 2 hours is up, you need to move to a new space. If your vehicle happens to take up 2 spaces, which many food trucks do, then you need to pay both those spaces and keep them paid. Time zones work the same. If you're parking in a 2-hour zone, if it's posted as a 2-hour zone or a 1-hour zone, you can park in that location for up to 2 hours. Then after the 2 hours is up, you need to move to a new space. Also, do not park in loading zones or no parking zones. There are some areas that's a little bit more difficult. Not so simple. First is crosswalks. You need to park 15 feet from any crosswalk. Crosswalks come in 2 types. They're either posted or not posted. So make sure those, the posted ones are easy. The lines are in the street. The non-posted ones are are basically you park from the 15 feet from where the sidewalk would cross the street. Driveways, alleys, you need to park 4 feet from any driver or an alley. And you probably a little bit more respectful for a food truck, a large vehicle, park even a little further than 4 feet. But 4 feet's the legal limit. 10 feet from a fire hydrant. You must park facing the right direction. So even though your serving window might be on the one side, you still need to park facing the right direction. Don't park in the bike lanes. Make sure your vehicle doesn't encroach on that bike lane, including the protected bike lanes. Those are the bike lanes that are between the parking lane and the roadway, or between the curb and the parking lane. Food trucks are obviously considered commercial trucks. Commercial trucks are not allowed to park on the street at all between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. Heavy vehicles, most food trucks are also considered heavy vehicles because they're over 3 tons. You cannot park on a residential street unless it's attended. So do not leave an unattended food truck on a residential street. That will be in violation. And finally, do not park on private property, whether signed or unsigned, unless you have permission from that property owner. But that is about it. Please follow the parking rules like every other vehicle would need to do. And thank you and enjoy the rest of your day. I'll be available for questions later in the presentation along with everybody else. So thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Richard. Now we're going to move to the Department of Milwaukee Police Department, and then we have Javier Benitez. And then Paul Javier is going to share his screen as well. Perfect. Thank you.
There we go. Is that screen up? Can people see the slideshow there?
Yes.
There we go. Okay. Hi, good morning. I'm Officer Javier Benitez with the License Division over here at Milwaukee Police. Just briefly go over some of our duties. Some of our duties are responsible for all background checks of applicants requesting a license with the City of Milwaukee. I think we work upwards to 30 licenses, maybe 30,000, if not more. We report those findings and pass them on to the City Hall part of the License Division. And our background checks go back 10 years for new applicants, 2 years for renewals. We'll also conduct follow-up for MBD personnel if they needed some help regarding an investigation. And we also go out with the State Department on their end. And some duties we also do enforce the city ordinances on the licensed businesses. Mobile food trucks and peddler vendors fall under that. Some of the things we ask and require is obviously have a valid mobile food license, either with the City of Milwaukee or another jurisdiction displayed to operate within the city. Used to be a state license, but I think they're going away with that. Also, allow police and the city inspectors access to the food truck, peddler truck when required. And be, of course, accordance with the city ordinances pertaining to selling those items from the parked vehicle and carts. I'm just briefly going to kind of go over the 4 ordinances that kind of pertain to mobile food vendors. Ordinance 11545, selling articles from parked vehicle. That's specifically for the parked food trucks. Ordinance 10556, the sales of the premise. Certain locations are off limits. We'll cover that. And ordinance 10557, sales of public right-way. Those are special events. And basically, in general, you should know ordinance chapter 68, which is the food regulations, including the health department's part and other aspects of that. Basically, the nitty-gritty of 11545 are the parking restrictions, like we were covering. You can't be parked in front of a school zone. Those are usually posted. And as mentioned, if it's a residential area, you can't be there more than 2 hours and return to the same block within 6 hours. So basically, they're asking you to kind of rotate to another block or another side street. Most of these are displayed for parking. The signs are out there, so just have to be aware. It may not be where you're parking, might be mid-block. Obviously, no food serving food from a median. And there are certain prohibited streets that they kind of covered. I just have some of them. They kind of added a couple more, but I'll show what I have. On the south side, you're basically looking from 19th Street on Mitchell, both sides of the street, going westward to the city limits, which would put you out to West Milwaukee, which is about 43rd or so. The same with Greenfield, starting on South Lane Boulevard, which is South 27th Street, going westward all the way to the city limits. And the same with Lincoln, which is starting from 20th Street, going to westward to the city limits. On the north side that I was able to pull up for you is 4 areas: North 76, West Florist Avenue to West Capitol Drive, and West Capitol, North 76 to West Fond du Lac. West Fond du Lac, North 68th to West Capitol, and North 60th Hampton to 76th. And it's kind of a map incorporating that. It goes without saying, these are, if you're in these streets, we get notified, we'll advise you of it and then kind of ask you to move and try to help you find a better location. The next ordinance basically covers the certain prohibited areas near events. Basically, this is covering no selling 2 hours before or 1 later after an event. The parking restriction is 500 feet from certain venues. Those venues are as follows: Wisconsin Center, the Milwaukee Public Museum, Pfizer Forum. I have a map because that kind of changed from it being Pfizer Forum from Bradley Center, Performing Arts Center, the Ravens Eagles Club, Summerfest, and AmFam Field. Basically, you're seeing right now is a map of how Pfizer Forum is. That's also including, they call it the Bucks District there, kind of covering now going in towards North World 3rd off of Highland. So probably like yourselves, you're wondering what's 500 feet. I had to look it up. That's just under 2 city blocks, so it's 1.89. And I found this map that our department used when the Bucks were in the playoffs, making their run. And that basically pushes you out a lot further than even I thought. From certain areas, you're almost towards Water Street and West Elite on the top. So I'm just keeping you guys advised of those certain venues that are kind of off limits. I mean, there's still workarounds, but you have to be within this area. If you have concerns, you could always try to have someone at the district meet you out for those parking spots. The next one, 10557, basically covers the sales on the public right of way, which basically means special events. The same rules kind of apply, but the 2 hours before and 1 hour after the event, and the 500-foot rule. Those events are included are Jazz in the Park, River Rhythms, Westtown Farmers Market, which is on Wisconsin Avenue, and other special events, Bastille Days, which takes part in the same area, Jazz in the Park. If you're a mobile food vendor and you did want to sell in those events, you'd have to get permission and the setup through the venue organizer. That's usually the person that's running those events. Basically, Ordinance Chapter 68 covers, like I said, all the food regulations, coordinating part of what MPD does and the health department. The ones in general, I just kind of like to go over our Ordinance 6839-6. That's comply with police, basically to relocate under certain things. If it's a safety concern where you're safe setting up or a health issue, the police can ask you to relocate. For example, if you're set up and we're expecting a large crowd that may kind of interfere with the pedestrian traffic or traffic in general, we may ask you to relocate. Ordinance 6839 out of that whole ordinance basically covers clearance of the sidewalks. You have to have a 5-foot clearance. That's basically kind of pertaining to food peddler carts when they kind of set up like a hot dog cart or something like that, a push cart. They have to be mindful of that 5-foot clearance. No blocking or restricting access to businesses through doorways. So, and then in that ordinance that also covered door-to-door sales. Some of the best practices that I recommend obviously are having good relations with your surrounding businesses, your residences, cleaning up after your surroundings after food sales, and have a garbage can access for your customers. Quiet generators, that tends to kind of get some calls into my department regarding neighbors thinking it's too loud, and we'll come out and assess the situation. Good practice is also for the business end is maybe having your own video camera set up just to cover if there was something disorderly that one of the customers did, so there's no blame maybe back on you. That's just a recommendation. And of course, complying with the inspectors, all city officials, police. We tend to do spot inspections anytime you're operating, so allow police and other officials access to that. Some possible penalties, if it goes that way, it could be issued citations and fines. and a negative license premise report. When an officer comes to a licensed business within the city, we are required to write what's called a license premise report. It can be negative or positive. If it's a good interaction and you're cooperative, not an issue. If it's a more of a negative and it continues to be a negative, that could affect the business in the sense of when you're up for renewal. The license committee will meet, taking these accounts, reports, and tickets into account. That could lead to a suspension or possible non-renewal of the license. Basically, these are all found on the city website up here, cityofmilwaukee.gov/cityclerk/LRB/ordinances. Any questions, we'll be sticking around for answer questions. And our contact over here at the License Investigation Unit are 93 is a general number 935-7430. We have banker hours because we're more of a supplement to helping out. And I have my personal extension on here, 7140. And sometimes it's easier to get a hold of me email because I might be on the street or might be in the office. So that ends my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, Javier, thank you. And thank you everybody for being here. I noticed there are a couple of questions, but based on our time, we are not going to be able to answer those. We are, if there is anything that our department needs to be answering, we're going to collect those questions and we're going to email you back. So I hope that you put your email address when you register for it. Otherwise, we'll get in contact with you. Please, if you have any other questions to any of the departments, make sure you email the email that is on the top of your screen or call that's Courtney's email. We'll pass those questions to the other departments in case you have anything related to licensing, to parking, or to the police department, and then we'll get those answers back to you. So I just want to finish the webinar. I want to be, fair with everybody with their times. It's 11:35 already. So for those that attended today, if you have anyone that wants to take the Spanish one tomorrow, same time, 10:30 a.m., please pass it around to them. And thank you again. And then we'll see you around, and then contact us at any time with any questions you may have. Thank you.